Welcome to the Referrals Podcast, the show designed to help everyone from the solopreneur to the Fortune 500 company win the referral game. If you want to build a company with an army of ambassadors and raving fans who speak highly of you and refer you willingly, you are in the right place. And now, here is your host, Michael J. Maher.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Referrals Podcast. I have to tell you, some of you know that we do record these early, and then we launch them out over a series of time. But I have to tell you, my podcast is being recorded back to back to back today, and I am so excited. It's like energizing to have these guests on that we are having, and another one today. I'm not going to tell you who it is yet. You're going to have to find that out here in a second. But I have to also give a big shout out to my team that manages the podcast with Sherry Maher and Mandy Thacker. Big congratulations. We're in the top 20 of all podcasts and marketing around the world. We have hit the number 12. Rumor has it, we even popped in the top 10 for a week. I did not actually see that, or trust me, I would have taken a screenshot and put that out to everybody. But number 12 in the marketing, and it's about referrals. This is Referrals Podcast. It's not referral marketing. It's not about marketing. There's no marketing in the title. So people had to specifically look for referrals or for this podcast to find it, download it, and subscribe it. And I have to tell you, I think the reason that we've done so well is because of you, the listener. You are listening, and then you are telling other people about it. I was just in a Facebook group earlier today, and in that Facebook group, somebody was saying, hey, what are the podcasts you're listening to? And Referrals Podcast kept coming up. And I have to say that there's nothing more rewarding. Okay, so we're providing value. That's the best thing ever. So, and I will tell you, we're providing massive value today with our guest. And before I bring Frank in, I want to give a big shout out. And we have Tim from New Jersey. I mean, come on. If somebody in New Jersey likes our podcast, shouldn't everybody like our podcast? You know what I mean? So here's the thing. So glad that Michael Maher finally has a podcast. Did you really have to put that in there, Tim? But you're from New Jersey, so I expected nothing less. But he brings like-minded sales professionals together who all believe that personal relationships are the best way to increase referrals and grow your business. I recommend this podcast to anyone and everyone who is tired of throwing ideas at the wall, waiting for something to stick. Start listening. This is the way. Thank you for that 5-star iTunes review, Tim, and thanks for writing in. And thank you for listening in New Jersey on your walk every morning. We really appreciate it. Without further ado, I have to tell you that today we have a 10-time author. He is a networking guru. He is Am Spirit's founder, and Am Spirit is a business connections group. He is an entrepreneur, attorney, author, and of course, he is the host of the Networking RX podcast, and he has also had several featured articles in Referrals Magazine, and you can check that out at referralsmagazine.com. Without further ado, let's welcome Frank Agin into the room. Frank, welcome to Referrals Podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. That's a lot of energy I need to keep up with here. You're way ahead of me today.
Well, I don't know. I tell you that just in the pre-session, it fired me up for the session. So,
good.
Today we're gonna talk about the 3 reasons that people aren't getting referrals, which I love the way we frame this. It's why aren't you getting referrals? And we're going to talk about the 3 reasons they aren't getting and how they can correct that and that kind of thing. But Frank, before we even jump into that, give us, tell us about your family, recreation, occupation. Give us a little bit of background of how you got into this networking game and how you kind of started winning the referral game. How'd you get started in this?
I live in Columbus, Ohio. I moved here to go to law school 30 some years ago. And when I left law school, I had a law degree and an MBA. I started my career at a really big firm. And I like to tell people I hated it. I hated it every minute of it except for paydays. That 24 days a year, you got a paycheck. Those were okay. Great job, great people. I just wasn't interested in being a tax attorney for the rest of my life. So I decided to leave and go into private practice. And I tell people that when I went into private practice, a funny thing happened. And the funny thing was that nothing happened. I had no idea how to get clients. I was that bad actor at the chamber after hours, right? The people that you kind of roll your eyes at. That was me. I really had no other idea as to what I needed to be doing. But one day I had lunch with a friend of mine who I went to law school with, and she had taken a different path. Her path was, rather than going to a big firm, she started her own small firm. And so I asked her, I said, what do I need to do to be successful? And she told me, she said, you need to get into a leads club or a tips group. Had no idea what she was talking about. Through a couple introductions, she introduced me to an organization that brought together entrepreneurs, sales reps, and professionals that met weekly to learn about each other and exchange referrals. Didn't think twice, got involved, but immediately it made sense, Michael. Immediately made so much sense. You mean I get to build a business promoting these people, and in return they're going to promote me? That's so easy. I can promote people better than I could promote myself. So I got into that. I got very involved. That led me to becoming that organization's first franchisee. And then about 5 years later, I bought the organization out and rebranded it as AM Spirit Business Connections. So
wow.
Stopped the practice of law, and this is what I do.
Yeah, I love it. And so how did you go? So she was like, I'm getting a lot of referrals from this group. You've got to join a networking group. What did you do to find a networking group? How did you go about that? Because you were not even familiar with this. And there's listeners who, even as prevalent as the internet is and everything else, they're not familiar with the idea of a networking group. So how did you go about finding the networking group?
Well, quite simply, it was networking. I told her at that point, I was semi-desperate to try and figure out how to get clients. It's difficult for attorneys because we're not supposed to advertise. We're not supposed to do a lot of the traditional things that a realtor might be able to do. And so we really need to figure out an alternative way. So she introduced me to somebody who introduced me to somebody else, and that led into me being invited to this particular group. It's how it ended up happening.
Very good. And you were the only attorney in the group?
Yes.
And how many people were in the group?
Well, the first meeting I went to, it was a formational meeting. There were 6. We were all looking at each other like, leery that somebody was going to bring out the Kool-Aid, right? The Jimmy Jones punch, right?
Right.
Because we had no idea what this was all about. But then it was explained and it quickly grew.
And, there were 6 of you. So many people, realtors, lenders, attorneys, financial planners, insurance agents, they look for the established group. Yeah. Was there a benefit to getting into a foundational group?
Oh, absolutely. There were a couple benefits I can speak to. One, and this is true in our organization, if you're a financial advisor, if you're a property casualty person, if you're a realtor, you're not going to find an existing group. And if you do, there's a reason why there's an opening, and
especially in those departments. Yeah, right. Those categories. If there's a realtor opening, there's something wrong with the group.
Right. Yeah. And not that I'm not saying it's not worth getting into, but you're going to have to put some work in. Yeah. Starting a group, yes, there was work, but I created a place for myself to belong, number one. Number two, I could kind of put my fingerprints all over it. All these groups have different personalities, and the people I was sitting around with, we all kind of had the same, cut from the same sort of story. We're just kind of new in what we were doing and trying to figure it out. So we were very understanding of one another. But the real benefit was I got to meet a ton of people, Michael. There were a lot of people who came through and never joined. But I still got to know them. In fact, the one quick story I'll share is there was a guy who came through, really had no business in any one of these groups. He left the meeting and he called his recently divorced ex-wife. I don't know what this says, but he said, hey, I know you want to start this business. She wanted to start a dance studio. I've met the attorney you need to use. This guy, this guy's got a small firm. He's eager. He'll be a perfect person to help you. Within a week, she's a client, and she was a client for 7 years until she sold that business. Wow. She'd had a family, remarried, had a family, and decided she was going to move on. Met the guy once. Yeah. And there are a lot of stories of people coming and going that never joined, but I got a chance to meet them. So that's the benefit.
How did you know early on that this was the right group for you? because there were only 6 people in there. You didn't even know the other 5 from Adam. So when was it that, I mean, I'm sure you went in with trepidation. You went in cautiously.
Yeah.
When was it like, okay, I made the right decision. I stuck it out. I'm here with 5 others. Now it's 11. Or when did you really see the light bulb go on or something click?
Well, again, I was semi-desperate, so I just kind of went with it.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to sit and wait. I wasn't going to sit and wait for it to just happen. I took action. Okay, what do we need to do? I'm going to jump in and I'm going to get involved. I'm not going to see where this goes. I'm going to direct where it goes. And I think that's a lesson for everybody. Don't just join something. You've got to be involved and try and make it happen. And so, again, my fingerprints were all over the development of it. And there was another woman who was in there, joined that same week. This is back in 1995, who's one of my franchisees now. And her name is Gina Winterstein. She was of a like mind, hey, let's make this happen. Let's get quality people in here. Let's really hold one another accountable. And the people who didn't want to live up to that standard, they just didn't join or they left. And so we just kept building with great people.
Out of the first 20 people, so you went from 6 to 20.
Yep.
Out of the first 20, how many of those did you bring to the group, would you assume?
Oh, I know that number because when I bought the franchise and I basically left the group because I wanted to I wanted to grow the franchise. There were 33 people in the chapter when I left the group. 3 I had brought.
Wow.
So it's really a collection of everybody kind of doing their part. And that, again, Michael, that's holding people accountable.
Yeah.
Hey, I know you've got a network. I know you've got people. Let's tap into it. I'll help you invite them, but it can't all be my network.
Right. Yeah. You didn't want to just replicate what you could do on your own.
Right.
That was the power of the group, the power of the team.
Yeah.
So when did you write your first book?
Well, my first business book I wrote in 2006. I have 2 novels to my credit. I wrote a novel dating back 1986. But when I got into doing this networking thing, I originally franchised or bought the franchise as a business opportunity, right? Now I can practice law, but I can also do this on the side, and this is neat. But as time went on, people started turning to me more and more for answers, much like the value you provide. How do I make this work? And so I really started studying kind of in an informal sense, not a research sense, but informal sense as to what was working. And I noticed that the people who were successful out there, because there were a lot of books out there that talked about these tactics, go to these events, have a good commercial, good handshake, follow up. And those are all nice.
Yeah.
I saw people who were good at those things, but struggled. Why? Because they were jerks. They weren't focused on giving to other people. Yeah. They were unreliable. Yeah. And so my first book, Foundational Networking, really talked about that you need to focus on these attitudes and habits for yourself to make yourself somebody that others want to have in their network. And that's really kind of the bottom line of the book. Become the person you want to network with.
That's right. You be the person you want to refer.
Yeah, that's it.
Be referable and be the person that you would love to refer to,
Yep.
So let's jump right into that. The topic of the episode today, and ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to this. This is a networking and referral expert who is about to share with us the 3 reasons we aren't getting referrals. What do we lack in our referral game? And when it's like any athletic endeavor or any business endeavor, it's good to know what you lack. It's good to know what your weaknesses are so that you can play to your strengths. If you can't dribble the ball, basketball is going to be pretty difficult for you to move around on the floor, or you got to become a good shooter or a good passer. But the thing is there's 3 reasons that you aren't getting referrals that Frank's going to lay out with you. And I have to tell you that this is good stuff. So Frank, let's jump into number 1 right from the get-go. Is what's one reason that people in general, business owners, are not getting referrals?
Yeah, thank you. I see this every day in working with my groups and people out there just in general. The first reason people don't get referrals is a lack of know, like, and trust. We'll call it lack of relationship.
Yeah.
People jump into groups or just jump into networking. They feel like, hey, I'm here. I need to get stuff. And people need to know them. And so sometimes it's a matter of it's just a matter of being patient and taking the time to allow people to get to know you and you getting to know them. Are you meeting with people one-on-one? You talk about that a lot in your book. What are you doing for other people? When you do for other people, share information, referrals, introductions. When you do for other people, and there's tons of ways you can help other people, people can't help but like you. When people give you referrals, when you get referrals, when you get introductions, do you act on those things, or you just kind of sit back and, I'll get to it next week? I mean, you have to treat that like gold. And that sends a clear message to people. And so the individuals I see out there who struggle lack that. That can be one of the things. I'll give you a quick story. One of my groups, one of my chapters, I had a financial advisor, had being the key word, right?
Yeah.
He's 45 minutes late to every meeting. He pulls me aside. He's like, I'm not getting referrals. What's the problem? I'm like, listen, you're 45 minutes late to every meeting. Well, what does that matter? Well, they just figure that that's how you're going to be with their clients. How we do the little things is how we do the big things. I wouldn't do that to their clients. They don't know that.
That's right. How you are here is how you are everywhere. People are going to just assume that that's how you are. What you do now is what you do always. And I love that. And, we talk about these 3 things you need to do to be referable, to be on time, do what you say you're going to do, and finish what you start, and you would think those are simple, but quite honestly, those are challenging life skills for a lot of people, so I love that. And so how do we get people to know us? How do we get people to like us, and how do we get people to trust us? What are some, and maybe we don't have to go tactical as much, but what is there a strategy or tactic or a behavior change that will lead to others quickly? I think most people, when they join a group, is they don't want to wait 6 months to get a referral. How do we do that from the very first meeting?
Well, I think the key is showing up in a big way. Like I did with the group. I got involved, and that would, I would recommend if we're talking about, groups, organizations, whatever, just even, monthly events that you show up at, and the question I always ask people, or the test I give them as to whether they're meeting that threshold, if you weren't there, would you be missed? And if you're not missed, you're probably not showing up in a big enough way. Yeah. So you need to kind of get involved, but certainly having one-on-one meetings with people, if you have groups, and it's all about relationships. You talk about trying to make it happen as quickly as possible, and everybody wants that. The reality is that trust builds at its own pace. If I'm buying flowers, I don't need to trust the florist. I'll take a flyer on $40.
You're going to take a flyer on flowers. I love that. I used to have a coach who always got flyers and flowers mixed up. Every time he said, we need to make some flowers. We need to make some flowers. It's like he really meant flyers, but it's funny that you would bring that up. So anyway,
but you take a chance.
A flyer on flowers.
You take a chance. And if it doesn't work out, then you just go elsewhere.
Working by referral is not some fairy tale world. It's real. I've seen it. And you can too. Invest in yourself by learning how to run your business by referral at Michael's upcoming live event. It will be a day filled with hands-on, how-to, low to no-cost strategies that you can implement in your business right away. Learn how to run a business by referral that not only feeds your family, but feeds your soul. Go to www.gengenevents.com today. That's www.gengenevents.com.
If you've got that 5-6 figure 401k you're needing to roll over, and you've got to pick a financial advisor, you're going to be a little more cautious, right? Or, we'll use the real estate because, if it's the $30,000 crappy little condo in, Gary, Indiana,
I'll buy it. Oh,
yeah,
wait.
right.
Yeah.
You know,
Any $30,000 condo, everybody needs to buy it. But you're exactly right. If it's an investment property that you don't live in and there's not a lot of emotion involved with, it's
right.
like you'll take a flyer on that with maybe a lesser referral. But if it's your home, $500,000, and your
Yeah.
family lives there, and it's your biggest investment, that you're going to go into that a little bit more cautiously.
Well, you just have to in understanding those dynamics. Let me put it this way: if you're a realtor and you're pretty new to real estate, you're going to have to bide your time a little bit more than the guy who's got a 20-year track record whose face is everywhere. Because he's working on the borrowed trust that he's accumulated over time.
That's right.
And so people do get impatient, and sometimes you just have to, guy I know out there, Adam Ward, he's with NetworkWise.
Yeah.
He's got that formula. He's got the formula. Trust is a function of time plus value, right?
Yeah.
You got to put in the time, and that time's going to vary. But while you're putting in the time, you need to add the value.
Yeah.
And continue to add the value. Again, show up, be involved, contribute information. Everybody's watching. Everybody's watching what you're doing. And it may not it's not necessarily you doing something for them, but doing something in general. And that helps build that trust.
I have to tell you, I love this. I talk a lot about networking because that's how I had no circle of influence. So I had to get started with networking. In fact, our stories are very similar. In fact, I think it could have turned a different way because I had actually contemplated buying the networking group that I was involved in. So it's very, very interesting. And I would always, it's like, all right, there's these things we need to remember about networking. First of all, it's like, it's all this right? You're at networking. So it's, first of all, it's attire, wear something that's presentable. Yeah. You may be a landscaper out and a landscaper is probably going to get a little more of a flyer on what they wear. But even if you are a landscaper, wear nice jeans, wear a logoed shirt and have nice attire. And, I get it. You want to wear shorts and a t-shirt to work in? Yeah, to work in. But this is networking, not working.
Right.
And so the next one is attendance, right? Attire, attendance. You got to show up. 80% of success is just showing up. And then you've got the attitude. What is your attitude when you come in? Is your attitude looking to take, or you're frustrated or disappointed because you're not getting anything? Or is your attitude the spirit of generosity, And then it's that whole, that concept of attempt. You need to give it, you need to attempt to give referrals. You need to give it a try. You need to give an attempt. You need to be attempt at giving out. And it's one of those where it's like, just remembering those ats make you referable. I don't know. You triggered something there.
No, I totally agree. It's, when you talk about the attempt, it's like the holidays. It's the thought that counts, right? I'm trying, it may not be working out, but hey, I'm trying.
That's right. And that leads to the next at, which was attention, right? Pay attention, get attention, and be at attention. And truly attention leads to intention. And if you do those, and notice that they're all controllable by you. Your attire is controllable, your attendance controllable. Yeah. You can't necessarily control if somebody's going to give you referrals or not. But what you can do is you can kind of control these ats that I called them the ats, And it was just one of those where it's like, you can pay attention. In today's world, back then the mobile phone, I had a Palm Trio, think about that. Right. So it wasn't as prevalent and a problem as it is now. But paying attention, it's amazing how much more referable somebody who pays attention is than the person who's got their nose in their phone. There's nothing more frustrating than seeing a networking group with 3 or 4 people who are spending the time on their phone.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
So the number one reason the number one reason that people aren't getting referrals is, just people don't like them, know them, or trust them. And building it is easier than people think. And we need to show up our best on a regular basis to conquer this. We need people to like us. We need people to know us. We for sure need people to trust us. And, you know, the way we do that is things we control and these things that are very simple and should be simple and should be executed. So what about number 2? Like what's the second reason that we aren't getting the referrals that we probably should be?
Well, you know, people know, like, and trust you. You have that relationship. The second reason why you wouldn't be getting referrals is they're unable to recognize opportunities for you. And I'll give you a great story. The woman I referenced, Gina Winterstein, I knew Gina since February of '95. Got to know her right away, married, 2 kids, had a third on the way. She's very likable. She's got an energetic personality to her.
What does she do?
Well, let me get that in the story. Bring that into the story.
Sorry. You got me interested in her just by you talking about her. So great stuff.
No, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's very, very trustworthy. She tells me she's going to be somewhere. She's going to be there. She always followed through. But for a year and a half, I didn't give her any referrals. Why? Because I had no idea what she did. She's a telecommunications consultant. She would come into the group. She'd talk about T1s, sonnet rings, things like that. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So when my law practice was growing, this is before the whole networking thing came about, I decided to move out of my home office, got a big boy office, if you will, and showed up at that big boy office, plugged the phone in the wall, and got nothing. So this is all pre-cell phone. I literally had to get in the car and drive home and call Gina and said, Gina, I've got this issue. Is this something that you can help me with? Absolutely. And so from that moment on, I started to be able to recognize opportunities. Okay, I see what you do. Now I get it.
Yeah.
And so that underscores the second piece of this. Some people do a really good job of creating relationships, but they do a horrible job of getting people to be able to recognize opportunities.
Yeah.
And I see it every day, and it's sad. And you had made a point that, hey, you can't control whether people give you referrals. And I do agree with that. But what I tell people, I guess it's kind of my tough love. I tell people whether you get referrals or don't get referrals is all on you.
Yeah.
Because you could, like you say, you control everything.
Yeah.
You control developing the relationship.
Yeah.
You can control to the extent which people are able to recognize opportunities.
You can orchestrate referral opportunities. You can't guarantee that that's going to produce a referral.
Right.
So we need to do all things right that we know typical leads to referrals, but that doesn't mean it's always going to lead to referral. You know, you can do everything right with someone and their spouse is a realtor, and as a realtor, you're not going to get the referral. So it's I love that. And so this education, you know, and I have to tell you, this reminds me of one of our coaching clients, Tommy Sandvik, who is out of Florida, and he's one of our CRT, Certified Referral Trainer. And in the beginning, I mean, it took me like 6 months to figure out what he did. And what was really interesting is I asked him 4 times what he did. And even after he told me what he did, I still didn't know what he did. And I go, you've got to learn to articulate better what you do and how you add value, what problem you solve. And in a lot of cases, I don't need your title, and I don't need, you know, exactly what you do. What I really need, what problem do you solve? You know, who are you looking for, and what kind of problem do you solve? And I love that. You know, I love that is so true. It's so hard to refer someone if you don't know exactly who they need and what they do.
Yeah, it happens all the time. Here's the deal. People, generally speaking, in business are really nice. That's the great thing. Mm-hmm. The problem is that people, generally speaking, are really nice. So you might be misspeaking, and they're not going to say anything. I had a guy in one of my groups. Yeah, right. A guy in one of my groups stand up. He said he's a financial advisor. Good referral for me is somebody who has problems with RMDs. Sat down. Everyone like shaking their head. So I stopped the meeting. I'm like, okay, Kevin, what's an RMD? Oh, it's a required minimum distribution. Does anybody know what that means? No one know. You know, Kevin, can you explain it? Hey, when people are 70 and a half, they're able to they need to start taking monies out of their qualified plans. Okay. Or the other one is 203K loans for real estate. You know, mortgage lenders throw that out. Nobody understands, and nobody's going to ask because they don't want to look dumb and they don't want to offend.
Well, and they're not paying attention. right? I mean, that goes back to the attention in my book is you were paying attention, maybe because you were the leader of the group or whatever, but you need to pay attention with the thought that you're going to refer that person today or tomorrow. When somebody introduces themselves, pay attention and immediately start working the mental Rolodex to who you, that doesn't mean you have to refer them, but every time it goes around and you did the exact right thing is okay, I still don't know who to refer, ask a question. I still don't know who to refer, ask a question. And then eventually it's all right. I need somebody that's 71 years old or older. Okay. You know, like, all right, I got that. You know, my parents are 77. So there you go.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, go ahead, sir.
Well, what I was going to say is what people need to focus on. You had kind of talked about, I don't need to know your title. I tell people, don't share what you do, share when you do it. You talked about solving problems, and I'll pick on realtors.
Yeah. Please do. Please do. I do it all the time, so I'm glad.
A realtor will say, "I'm a realtor. A good referral for me is somebody buying and selling a house." Yeah. Okay, that's what you do. The when is, you know, if you know a couple that living in an apartment just had a child, that's a when. Mm-hmm. Do you know a couple? Do you know somebody who's just married off their last child? They're going to be empty nester. That's a when. Yeah. Do you know somebody who wants to diversify their portfolio, maybe get in some investment property? That's a when. And so what I encourage people to do is come up with all the whens in your, you know, and there's tons of them, right? There's a million, well, not a million reasons, but people are buying houses for lots of reasons.
Yeah, 6 or 7. And that's the secret to the success stories from 7L. What you've said is exactly why I created the 7 steps to a successful success story. Is I created a successful success story from each of the a move down, a move up, first time home buyer, first time home seller, a treasure home buyer, an investor. And so I had these stories of people that I'd helped, and I would just tell that story over and over again with the thought of, you know what, this is a win. This is when I help people like this. And those success stories, the nice thing is, like, they were successful, but they couldn't have been successful without me, you know? So it's one of those where it's like, talking about your client success implies that you're a success as well.
Well, you know, and you make a good point. Stories are important. If you just, and again, we'll continue on the theme of realtors, but if you're a realtor and you're just saying, well, I help people buy the vacation home, the treasure home, or whatever you want to term it, those 6 or 7 different categories. If you just talk in abstract, it's not as powerful as if you say, you know what, I had some guy who's an AT&T exec retire, and he came to me, and his dream was to have a hunting property and blah, blah, blah. Well, that gets people moving that mental Rolodex, right? They start peeling through there. You know what? I know somebody. I should talk to them. So certainly telling stories is one of the things that I encourage people to do. Coaching people on what to look for on social media. Social media is such a treasure trove of information because people are so free with things that are going on in their lives. You know, hey, my daughter got engaged. You know, okay, you know what? There's a new home buyer looming on the horizon.
A lot of things going on right there. Yeah,
right.
A lot of opportunity for a lot of people.
Right. Yeah. And so that kind of gets people thinking, okay, it should get people thinking. But that's what we need to coach people is like, when you see this, think of me.
Yeah.
Think of me.
So lack of relationship is number 1. Lack of education is number 2. What is the number 3 reason that business owners are not getting referrals or salespeople?
All right. So we have that relationship and people are able to recognize opportunities for us. The third thing that trips people up is the inability to the person who's going to be referring you or introducing you, the inability of them to have a conversation with the target audience.
Whoa.
Okay. Let me share a story. We won't pick on realtors. When I was practicing law, I had a client. And she had a security business, armed guard security business. So anyhow, I worked with her and was always having problems. But there was a guy that I knew who was a kind of a therapist. And his name was Jerry. Jerry was great. I knew Jerry. I liked Jerry. I trusted Jerry. Jerry did a great job of getting me to be able to spot when people needed his help. They were not mental health type things, but there were obstacles in their way.
Yeah.
And so as I'm working with my client, we're pushing the boulder up the hill and it keeps rolling back down. I'm like, what in the heck? She's spending all this money with me and nothing. We're not pulling the trigger on anything. Well, I came to find out that her ex was still in the business, marching around the office with a gun at his side. I don't know if it had bullets or not, but he was just trying to be intimidating. And he was intimidating. And I don't know exactly what was going on in their relationship when they were married or after they were married, but that was the problem. And this guy was stuck in her life, and he was the big boat anchor pulling her down. I did not have that conversation with her.
Yeah.
I recognized the opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's what held me back. What I ultimately did then was sit down with Jerry and said, Jerry, here's my situation. I got a client. I know this is the problem. What do I say?
Yeah.
And he coached me through how to make it work. A lot of times people fail to do that.
So what did that look like? So so I love that you had the conversation. I mean, a lot of times people just give up, I can't have the conversation, so I'm not going to worry about it. So you were the type of networker that's like persistent. You're like, you really wanted to help them. So, so you sat down and he just coached the approach. Yeah.
Yeah. He just said, I was certainly much younger and much more naive. But just take the approach that I really want to help you. And I see something here. I could be wrong, but this is what I sense. And when I had the conversation with her, she was very, you're right. You're right. I know it. I don't know how to get away from it. Like, okay, I've got somebody who I think can help you. And he did. Within 3 months, this guy was gone,
Wow.
And her business flourished. So
that's an awesome story. Kudos, you did help. You helped him, but you also helped her insurmountable, in a huge way.
Yeah.
So I love that. So, so it's lack of relationship, lack of maybe education or helping them recognize the opportunities.
Yeah.
And then coach the approach, really, really help people, understand how to have the conversations with the target market. And that's the only one of the only places you can do that is through a business networking group. If you're talking to somebody that you only randomly see occasionally, that relationship's not going to be built to the point where you actually have that third conversation. Right. And that's the hit and run networking strategy that so many people have and wonder why they don't get referrals, is because they don't get into relationship. They don't have time to educate the other person on what they actually do and the problem that they solve. And if there's any hesitation or anything, it never comes up because the conversation never happens, because that's a third conversation or a fourth conversation, some cases a 20th conversation.
Yeah.
Having those conversations without being in a networking group. And I have to tell you, anybody that's in a networking group and you're looking to recruit people, you need to share this podcast, because this is the proof and evidence that your networking within a business networking group is going to be more profitable and fruitful because of these reasons. You're going to conquer all three of these at almost every networking meeting. So Frank, this has been phenomenal, dude. I mean, I didn't know where this was going to go. I didn't really know what the three reasons people weren't getting referrals, but I love every one, and you've honed it down, and we gave a behavioral change and a thing that they can do to conquer each one. And this has been fantastic. So I wish we had more time, but for people who want to contact you for the books, for speaking, for learning more about Am Spirit, how do they go about doing that? And I want to real shout out is people need to check out your Networking RX podcast as well, and make sure that they're subscribing to that and sharing that.
To get a hold of me, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, my email's out there. The simplest way, the central point for everything is frankagin.com. All my books are there. Links to my email.
Just so they have it.
Yeah, FrankAgin.com. all the stuff's there. Email, you can connect with me through there. Tons of information. So that's the best way to get a hold of me.
I love it. Networking and referral expert Frank Agin on Referrals Podcast. If you're new to this podcast, now you see why we're number 12 in the marketing category, because we bring experts like this to the table who don't just give fluff and stuff and are looking to sell you on something. It's all value. And do yourself a favor. Go to frankagin.com today. Check out what is available with Frank's website. And the download for today is we have a 3 reasons graphic that you can print out, frame it, put it up in your office as a constant reminder that you've got to be building relationships. You've got to be educating people, and you got to help them coach the approach for the target market, for the people that you really want to get in front of. And Frank, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. This has been a fantastic episode of Referrals Podcast. Do us a favor, share the word, referralspodcast.com. Every download, every time we do this, and please check us out by going to iTunes, Google Stitcher, or Google Play and let others know about it. And if you haven't given us a review, do us a huge favor. Please review the podcast today. We appreciate you. Thanks, everybody.